Sometimes, while it might be, quote, unfortunate in our eyes, that God is going to use certain things, people, certain circumstances, situations to get people to say, this is real. Good morning. Welcome to Meaningful Mornings with Yolanda and Ralphie. We're back for another dose to help you get your day started off right. Today we have a story time because the stories within the book are kind of wild, some of them. And if you really get into it, Jesus was low key a gangster. And I do have to preface this. If you've been here for a while, it might be odd for you to hear me speaking about these things, but she's a former girl turned on fire for Jesus and sharing this every morning. Just a little bit of the word. I have an acronym that I use to have better mornings, and it has made such a difference. So, I come over here not to be an expert, not to teach even, but simply to discuss, share, open it up. And again, maybe something that you hear today is exactly the thing that you need to hear. So today we are in John chapter 9, and I am going to maybe give like a general of the story because this is a little bit of a longer chapter. But this story is so lit, and it's about Jesus healing a man that was born blind. Jesus performed miracles. He was God in the flesh, essentially. And this story, I think, helps to answer sometimes the question or the limitation that we might have of, if there's a God, why do bad things happen to people, or why are people born certain ways? This man that was blind, the story goes that as Jesus passed, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him Rabbi, because they also called Jesus Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. Just backing that up, like really quickly. Again, when I heard this as like new baby Bible reader believer, I was like, wait, that's where it clicked for me. Oh, that sometimes, while it might be, quote, unfortunate in our eyes, that God is going to use certain things, certain people, certain circumstances, situations to get people to say, this is real. Verse 4 goes, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day, night is coming when no one can work. And this story is a unique story in the Bible because Jesus healed this blind man on Sabbath, which is essentially the day of rest. If you go back to the book of Genesis, like look at her like knowing something. Or at least like kind of connecting dots. To me, it's always so weird. And I'll say this because, guys, I had this pull to go to church and I couldn't understand where that came from. And it was so uncomfortable and it wasn't something that I wanted to do on my own. And so the first time I ever went, well, I still did go by myself, but a friend of mine was there and I was meeting up with her. And I just remember sitting there like, what is this? I'm so confused. I don't know who John, Peter, Mary, or Paul, or none of these people are. And now, so it's been, I'd say, since I like got into the Bible, to be quite honest, I wasn't reading it in January. Definitely not. Like if you go in the book of Genesis, it's like days 1 through 6 that God was in creation, and then the last day that he rested. People were not supposed to work on the Sabbath. That was the actual day of rest. And Jesus healed this man on the day of rest. So these people were already very skeptical of like who the Son of Man was, of God was. They were already skeptical about this. And so when this blind man can now see, because Jesus like spit in the mud and like wiped his eye, told him to like go off, and he like came back and he could see. People were not trusting of that because it was done on the Sabbath. It was basically like rule that there was no work, right? There was no labor. And so that's why these people were like, well, this can't be true. But they were like, the Pharisees were like, this man is not from God, for he does not keep Sabbath. How can a man who is a sinner do such signs? That now that the parents were starting to be questioned. The Pharisees went to the parents and was like, how is this possible? Like, your son, we've seen him as a beggar. How does he all of a sudden see? And because it was basically you believed in Jesus, that you would be cast out of the synagogue. This is like how polarizing this stuff was. And I get why people have this, like bad taste about things in their mouths. Like who actually gets into that? Why would you want to believe in that? The power in belief and the power in miracles. And so it goes on to say so much in the way that I personally interpret this. Don't know if it's correct, but it's the way that we interpret the story. That the parents didn't want to answer for the son because he was of age, and that because he was of age that he could answer for himself. And so as they're questioning him, for the second time they called the man who had been blind and said to him, give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He answered, whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. They said to him, why did he do, or what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples? And they reveled reveled, I don't know what that word is. Him saying, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. Essentially, like, they couldn't put their trust and faith in him, in Jesus, because they were unsure of where he came from, and basically thought that he was like not who he said he was. The man answered, why, this is amazing. You do not have to know where he comes from, and yet he has opened my eyes. So that is, I think, a big line in faith, and that we have to have faith. We choose to be believers because we have free will. You don't have to do any of this. But if you so choose to have faith in God, to believe that Jesus did die on the cross, to believe that God sent Jesus down for this ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to eventually live eternally forever and ever with God in heaven as his children, even when you can't see him, can't feel him, even when you're asking him for answers to things that you don't understand, that we have to still withhold this faith. Because as the once blind man says, why, this is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he has opened my eyes. So that's like just this faith, this trust. And I will say, as someone that, and this is kind of where I come from when I am sharing this stuff, is as someone that was far away from all of this, really could not put any, like, that's weird. Like, I used to like have these thoughts like, God, what? That can't be real. That can't be true. Religion, what? This is weird. I really don't come over to preach religion or talk about it. It's not really it to me. It more so becomes about believing in something higher than us. And I've always believed in something bigger than us, but I was calling that for the universe for a really long time. The shift that I have felt in my life, this shift I believe a lot of people see or feel because it's commented on. I literally am commented all the time where people will slide in my DMs like, I've been praying for you to get to this point. Like, and that's, ooh, it makes me emotional. Like, now I get it. What I want to offer to people is that there's a peace that we can find, that it doesn't come from self-help. Is it helpful? Yeah, maybe. It's been helpful. If you can hold this belief even when like your life feels hard, you don't understand what's going on, you don't know where like your next thing that you need is going to come from, but you have this trust. It's just when you have in that trust that you like really start to see things work, or that you will like look back in your life and you will see how things have been working for you. And so, like, if I look back in it, like, God has always been here. I don't know if many of you know this story, but when I was a nurse, I was in the ICU one night taking care of a patient, and the patient was dying from AIDS, and I was exposed to their bodily fluids. It's so crazy, actually, that we're talking about Jesus healing this man born blind. We went to go turn this patient, and their ventilator, the tube that was helping them breathe, was disconnected from the machine, and I got splashed in my eyes and my face with this person that was actively dying from AIDS, the end result of HIV, the virus. So I'm fine. I'm totally healthy. But like, it's been things like that that you're like, something had to have been working. And when all that happened, it was really scary because I went to the ER, like I did the whole like protocol that you're supposed to do, but the ER doctors didn't start me on the medications that they should have started me on right away. Because it's one thing to, like, I've had a needle stick before because these things happen. Like, healthcare is a dangerous like field. It's the front lines of healthcare. Um, oh, I'm just like so choked up this morning. So I prior to this, even like a long time ago before that, I've been stuck by a needle, and it was very like worrisome because I didn't know the patient's status, and it was like a little needle, so it was like the chances of you contracting this is like very low in general. But the needle stick, it was like I didn't know that that patient what their status was, and she was negative, and it was fine. But being in that moment of like, I knew that this patient had an infectious disease that could alter my life forever. And then being exposed and just not knowing, but also having zero faith. I had no idea that I could talk to God or any of that. But the hospital, the ER doctor did not start me on the protocol that they should have right away. And it wasn't it was so it was like this wasted time, like this time that we could have been taking interventions was being wasted. And I just look back on that. Again, I'm totally fine. I had to like take these medications. It was just like a whole fiasco. And I honestly, like looking back at all of this, probably had a lawsuit that probably could have taken to a lawyer, because hospitals, we know how healthcare is. They would have just pushed it at the table, probably paid me to keep my mouth shut. When people are like, "Why don't you ever want to be a nurse again?" I there's so much trauma that I just think that people don't understand. And that sometimes I think maybe even I tuck away, like, "Ooh, look at the feelings coming out this morning." Again, like if you go back into your life and you look at things you've been through, there's parts of it that it's like, that's nothing but God. So again, this man saying, wow, you see that this has happened. You saw where I was. You don't need to physically see him or to know him to know that it's real. And if we go back to verse 3, where Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him." And so when we look at that, like, it's our stories, and I think stories and testimonies are so powerful to help a potential non-believer see. And I'm not here, like, I love that I have people that are further ahead, but I'm not here to speak necessarily to people further ahead. This to me, like, yes, it might touch people and resonate and people will get it, but to me, meaningful mornings is for the person that needs a little bit of faith, needs a little bit of hope. Wherever you might be in your life, that we can all get that. But again, like, ultimately, I feel really called in showing up and like helping a non-believer get to from where I was to this point of there's a profound peace that you can find 100% if you so believe. Then it kind of goes on. There's another part that sticks out to this. The Pharisees thought that this man was like crazy, like there was no way Jesus healed him, like this is wild. So they cast him out, and Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and then he goes and he finds the man. He says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And he answered, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" And Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you." So now it's like this is real. I'm confirming that it's real. And he said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshiped him. And Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see." Those who do not see, those who can't see but hold a faith, get the miracle, the blessing of being able to see. Does that make sense? And those who see may become blind. This is how I interpret this. Those who don't believe, that essentially that their non-belief yield them something that they don't want, the opposite of what we would want. Some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to him, "Are we also blind?" Because now it was, we want to be blind so that we can see, so that we can have this miracle put into our lives. And this is where I'm telling you, Jesus is so gangster in some passages. And he said to them, if you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say, we see, your guilt remains. And I interpret this as, because you didn't have the faith, you didn't choose to believe, that now you now see, but yet your guilt remains. I don't know if that speaks to anyone. Story time. I think I never would have put like the two and the two with the eyes together, that this is where I was led today. And then I'm like, oh, let me tell you this story. Because that was not, the story time was just supposed to be about the blind man. So I don't know. God be working, y'all. This was John chapter 9. So it's a little bit of a longer chapter because I like when they like this. But what would Jesus do, or WWJD, the way that we put that into our meaningful morning is worship and praise, waking up, giving thanks to God. The next is the W, which is getting into the word. And then journaling, which I've already done for the morning. And then the next is deciding and declaring. What do you want to meditate on? Right? It's not that I have to take this entire chapter and memorize it or any of this stuff, but it very much is about, well, what verse do I sit with today? What verse do I take out into life and see how I can apply it every, like, throughout the day, right? So if you so choose, what I would like to offer is that Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. So powerful. If you feel like the world is against you today, if it feels like, sometimes you wake up in the morning and it's like you stub your toe, and then you go outside and your car is dead, and then you finally get to work and your boss is having a crappy day and taking it out on you, that sometimes it seems like this one thing after the other. And again, if we can put that, sometimes potentially these things that we deem bad, unfortunate, that they happen so that we can essentially give glory to God, give glory to his miracles, give glory to the power that he works. Because again, when we have faith, and when you're having those unfortunate bouts of life, because they're absolutely going to happen, guarantee 100%, it is not that I have found God and now life is perfect and miraculous and all the things, because no, it far from, right? But it's in that those hardships that we have, holding the steadfastness in faith, holding the steadfastness in God. I don't know what you're doing, but I know it's bigger and better than I can think in my small mind. And that we have to stub our toe. We have to have the car be dead. We have to have the boss be nasty to us. We have to, have all these unfortunate things so that we can give glory to him when we're on the other side of it. That's it. That is what God wants. Our God, and he says he is a jealous God. He is jealous. He wants to be the one that gets all the praise. And this has been a huge shift for me, right? And it's work. Like, it is work. There's still like times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so much in my ego right now. Like, even on this live, I will go back, I will listen to it, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, get out of your ego, girl, right? But it's all opportunities. We're humans. We're not perfect. We are not Jesus. So we have to give ourselves like the grace with that, and also not just being how we want to be, but choosing to be a different way and asking ourselves, how can we lead a more Jesus-centered life a little bit all the time? And that is having humility. It's all these little things. It's having compassion, having kindness, having patience. All the things that typically as humans we do not have. We don't have patience. We're rushing our dogs, we're rushing our kids, we're rushing through traffic, we're honking out horns because somebody's cut us off and we're late for work. All these little things, they're all opportunities to look at your way of being and saying, is this the best way? And that is where I am constantly humbled. I even wrote this morning, I'll let you guys in. I like to journal. I take that and I sit with like, what's in my mind? Like, what's in my heart? I ask that you work more strength, peace, and kindness in my heart. Take away the extreme bitterness that I often find in myself and in the spirit of comparison. Like 100%, like this is how I go to God. It's not I'm all buttoned up. I am so perfect. I know all the things. No, it is very much like, I know what I need some tuning. Jiffy Lube me in the shop and get me together, God, please. And so I go to that and I just said, I'm aware of it. I know it needs to change and I need to be rooted in the focus simply on pursuing and being more like Jesus. These again, old spiritual woo woo girly, like this is how she wakes up in the morning and the things that are like coming out of her. It's no longer let me read this self-help book to understand how I can be more kind. It's no longer I'm a projector and I have this bitterness that tends to be part of that type in human design. It's God, I know you didn't intend for me to be this way. I know you didn't intend for me to have this characteristic. Conditioning, some people get into like it being the enemy, warfare, all these things that are keeping us from who we truly are. And I've been someone that was extremely into zodiacs, but we have a loving God who created us in his image. He didn't put you here to just be like every old Libra. No. And so when we give so much, and I've been there, so this is no judgment, but when we give so much power to a label, when the only label that we really need to be is being the label of love, just being pure Jesus like love, Jesus who suffered on the cross for us. This is where like your mind just gets so blown. And whether you believe it or not, I think with Easter coming up and you just might be seeing like more things because that's what Easter is about. The story that is told over and over, how is it not real? Whether you believe it or not, I think it begs to just say, how could somebody make this up? You know what I mean? And to think that somebody in their flesh went through that is wild. They like nailed him down. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. I do think we get to sit with when we put the word forward, when we wake up and we praise God, when we get our thoughts and our emotions and our feelings out, you can take a step back and you can say, in the grand scheme, this is nothing in comparison to what he endured. And I just think it's like wild and it's one of those things I'll say like in the beginning of this, like my friend Christie's especially, she would send me like these pictures and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like what?" And I couldn't get myself behind like even wanting to like necessarily read or explore into it more. But the more that you like get into this, the more that you see how Jesus, despite being ridiculed, despite people not understanding, him being, cast out, all these things, that he was still here on a mission. He didn't want to die. That's in the word, but he knew that it was God's will. And so then life becomes very much of, God, what is your will for me? I don't know. I think we're getting closer to it all the time, but I don't know. All I can do is to humble myself and to show up and to come before you and say, help me. I can't do this on my own. I don't want to do it by myself. I know that I'm not supposed to do it by myself. Matthew 7:7, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. If you know that, and then it goes on basically to say, like, God is your father. If you believe that in your heart, if you can hold that in your heart, your father would never give you something that you don't ask for. You ask for this one thing, he's going to give you the thing that you need. Now, sometimes the thing that you need is not the thing that you think you need, but you have to trust in that. And I've just had that lesson. That's been a big lesson in the last just beginning of this year. Thanks for hanging out with me for a meaningful morning. This took a turn that we didn't see coming. I love you. I will be here again tomorrow morning. If there is a verse that like really speaks to you, if you're catching these and you're like, hey, let's open up with this verse, I would love to know.